Can a champion quietly live among us, pouring coffee and clearing plates while carrying the weight of a forgotten glory? In a dusty corner of Bridgeport, Connecticut, tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop, stood a small, aging diner called Nora's Table. It was the kind of place where the linoleum floor squeaked and the booths had cracked vinyl, but the coffee was always hot and the waitstaff knew your name and your heartache. Elias Moretti had worked there for 9 years. He was tall, wiry, and moved with a kind of silent rhythm, almost like a melody no one else could hear. Every morning he clocked in at 6:00 a.m., folded napkins with careful hands, and served people who rarely noticed his face. Some said he looked like a man who used to be somebody. They weren't wrong. 23 years ago, Elias had sprinted across the finish line at the 800-meter final in the Sydney Olympics, his name echoing through stadium speakers as the gold medal shimmered against his chest. That day, the world cheered. And then, the world moved on. Elias never cashed in on endorsements. He never went on talk shows or started a coaching empire. He vanished not from earth, but from ambition. Now, he spent his days pouring coffee for truckers and folding omelets for couples who argued softly over bills. His kindness was consistent, yet invisible like clean air or warm sunlight. One Monday morning, the bell over the diner door jingled, and in walked a sharply dressed man. Pinstriped suit, leather shoes that didn't belong on cracked tile, and a Rolex that probably cost more than the monthly rent of half the customers combined. He sat alone at table 12. Elias approached, not blinking at the man's sharpness. "Coffee, sir?" he asked gently. "Black, no sugar," came the reply, barely looking up. Elias poured the cup, then turned as the door swung open behind him, a mother struggling with a stroller and diaper bag. Without pause, Elias rushed forward, held the door, bent to retrieve the fallen pacifier, and helped her find a clean booth. She didn't tip. He didn't mind. But across the diner, the man in the suit watched quietly, sipping his coffee and noticing. Have you ever overlooked someone who might be quietly carrying a story far greater than your own? The next morning brought soft rain, the kind that clung to windows and slowed down even the birds. Elias arrived soaked, his worn poncho dripping as he locked his bike and stepped inside. His shoes squished softly as he walked to the back room and changed into a dry apron. At 7:30, table 12 was filled again. Same man, same suit, different tie. Elias approached. "Coffee again, sir?" The man glanced up. "You run here or something?" Elias smiled, wiping his hands. "Just a bike. Good for the knees or what's left of them." "You move like a runner," the man replied. "You've got a stride." Elias offered a polite chuckle and walked away before the conversation could deepen. Later that evening, long after the lunch rush had faded and the sky turned to ash, Elias spotted a boy, maybe 15, huddled near the side of the building. Wet hoodie, ripped jeans, and fear in his eyes. "You all right?" Elias asked, crouching beside him. The boy shrugged. "Just waiting on nobody." Elias unzipped his poncho and wrapped it over the boy's shoulders. "Stay warm, and if you're hungry, knock on the back door." He rode home in the pouring rain, cold soaking into his bones. What he didn't know was that the man from table 12 had been there again, seated, watching, not saying a word. Would you step into the storm just to give someone else a bit of shelter? The next few days passed quietly. The man who finally introduced himself as Marcus Bell kept returning, always sitting at table 12, always observing. Elias remained professional, calm, courteous. But he became more careful. One afternoon, the diner's owner, Mossy, pulled him aside. "Some guy called asking questions about you," she said, frowning. "Said he recognized you from somewhere important. You in trouble?" "No," Elias said quickly. "I'm just not interested in being found." That night, while wiping down the counter, Elias slipped on spilled milk and cut his palm on a shattered glass. The wound was clean but deep. He wrapped it tightly, but blood still seeped through the gauze. Marcus stood up from table 12. "You're Elias Moretti," he said, voice soft but sure. "You ran the 800 in Sydney. I was 12. I watched you overtake 3 world-class runners in less than 30 seconds. You disappeared after that. Everyone wondered what happened." Elias froze, his hand trembling slightly. "That was a long time ago," he said. Marcus didn't back off. "You were brilliant." Elias sighed, leaning against the counter. "Brilliance," he said slowly, "doesn't pay hospital bills when your mother's dying, or keep a roof over your head when sponsors disappear after one bad interview. I burned bright for one race. Then I had to learn how to live quietly." He walked away, leaving Marcus speechless. Have you ever buried a part of yourself just to survive the rest of your life? 2 weeks passed. Marcus didn't return. Elias figured the curiosity had faded. Then, one chilly Thursday morning, Marcy met him at the door, her hands trembling with excitement. "You got a letter," she said, holding out a cream-colored envelope with a check inside, a big one. Elias opened it slowly. The check read, "Pay to the order of Elias Moretti, amount 50,000, from Wellspring Foundation for Hidden Talent." There was a note. "Elias, you gave more in silence than most give in glory. Your kindness changed the trajectory of a forgotten teenager. You ran one race for the world. Maybe now it's time to run one for yourself. This isn't charity, it's belief. Use it however you want. Coach, rest, write, return. Thank you for being a man of gold even when no one was looking. Marcus Bell, CEO, Wellspring Foundation." Elias stood at the back of the diner, tears falling freely down his weathered face. He wasn't crying over the money. He was crying because someone, after all these years, had seen him, had believed in him, had honored not the runner, but the human. What would you do if someone handed you a second chance? No strings attached? It's been 3 years. Elias no longer works at Nora's table. Now he runs a youth athletic center in New Haven, not a sleek one with glass walls and endorsements, but a humble community hall where kids from broken homes learn how to stand tall, one stride at a time. He doesn't wear his Olympic medal. It stays in a box under his bed. But when a young girl finishes her first lap without stopping, he claps with a pride deeper than any podium. Sometimes a kid will ask, "Coach Elias, were you ever famous?" And he'll smile and reply, "Once, maybe." But fame fades. What matters is what you do when no one's cheering. He teaches them how to run, not to win, but to rise. And miles away, Marcus Bell still dines in small places, hoping to find another Elias, another story worth seeing, another soul worth honoring. Because real gold doesn't glitter, it gives. Who have you passed by lately, not realizing they might be carrying silent greatness? Kindness doesn't always wear medals. Sometimes it wears an apron, takes the night shift, and walks home in the rain. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to The Kind Story and help us continue to share the hidden heroes all around us. Let someone know they're seen today. You never know what race they've already run, just to stand before you. Disclaimer: this story is an original work for The Kind Story, created by human writers with AI assistance for formatting and narration. It reflects real-life inspired emotions and adheres to YouTube's community guidelines and monetization policies.